Good day traders, this is Stefanos on behalf of Tixee, and in today's webinar we'll be giving an outlook of the market for the week of the 27th of June until the very 1st of July. Now looking at some of the highlights for next week, we will be looking at the economic calendar where we'll have GDP data from the US and Canada, as well as employment data from the EU. Now, as always, please note that all of the ideas discussed in this webinar are my own opinions and do not make up for any form of investment and trading advice, neither any recommendations to buy or sell. You should always do your own research and due diligence before buying or selling any securities, financial products, or instruments, and whether you use any kind of trading strategies. Any information that relates to past performance is not indicative of future results. So looking at stocks first, we're going to be looking at Home Depot, it could be one of the highlights in the next couple of days, as it had a coverage initiated by MKM partners. Meanwhile, I'm just going to pull up the chart to have it in front of us. Now, the rating, as it stands, it's a neutral rating for Home Depot with a price target of $285. So you can see, even though we're still sitting at 282, there's still some room of an uprise with regards to its stock price. Now, it is currently, if I zoom out on the chart, it's not just Home Depot. We can see this across many different stocks. On the year, overall, it's negative, and specifically, it's more than 30% down, or $141 on the year. However, with its current market price, which again we mentioned is 282, it has a few dollars of a rise. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean it's just gonna rise to 285. It's not guaranteed, obviously, and it doesn't mean it would stop there as well, because obviously, let's not forget that this is just the coverage initiated by one analyst alone. So obviously, collectively, we look at the broader coverage or consensus with regards to the stock. We could get an overall rating of, let's say, of it pushing even higher. So it depends more or less what the overall sentiment is across different analysts with regards to where the price of Home Depot could be going. But nevertheless, for the time being, it could present like some short-term opportunities. And like I said, it could be a highlight whether it moves on the next couple of days to the downside or upside. It doesn't really concern us. What we know is that we do have the coverage initiated, which could draw some further eyes onto this stock. So yeah, if stocks is one of the markets that you prefer trading, I would say you can just keep this on your watch list and see what kind of moves it makes in the next couple of days. There could be some further movements depending if we get any updates with regards either to the price target or to the overall rating of the stock itself. Next up, we're going to be moving on to Forex, and as we do on a weekly basis, we're going to head over to the economic calendar. We can find, again, just by clicking on the home page here, you can go to the Education and Research tab. Then you can click on the economic calendar. And here we can obviously use all of the filters here to readjust the data according to our liking. For the sake of the video, I'll switch it to medium and high impact events. Obviously, we want to look at next week, and always don't forget the timings right here, because it's obviously you want it to be the time zone that you're in to make sure you're looking at the correct time for the release of that specific event. So on Monday, we're going to be kicking things off quite strongly. We're going to have the G7 summit, as we can see here, or the ECB forum on central banking, is going to be released more or less at the same time. Obviously, this is not going to be a figure, but rather it's going to be a meeting between the 7, let's say, largest economies of the world. So definitely a meeting that would have a lot of eyes drawn onto it. Then moving towards midday on the same day on Monday, we're going to have the second high impact event of the day and the week, which is going to be durable goods figure for the US dollar. You can always use the little tooltip right here, as we always keep mentioning, which can give you a pretty good idea of the volatility that you can expect in the hours following the event. Then towards the end of the day, evening time, we're going to be having the speech from ECB's president, Christine Lagarde. Then moving on to Tuesday, so we're going to have the second day of summits. Again, it's going to be pretty much the same one as it was on Monday. Then in the morning hours, we'll have the consumer confidence figure for Germany, which being the Eurozone's largest economy. Obviously, you can expect it's quite an important event, hence we have the high importance here as well. We'll have yet another speech from the ECB's president and then member from the Bank of England, which is going to be in the still morning hours of the EU session. Let's just scroll here. We're going to have consumer confidence figures from the US in the early afternoon. And then we're going to have the first somewhat like report or gauge we're going to be having with regards to the oil inventories, which is going to be at 9:30. Again, it's going to be UK time. Then moving on to Wednesday, we have the third day of meetings with regards to the ECB's forum on central banking. In the early morning hours, UK time, we're going to also have the retail sales figure coming out from Australia. If that's the time zone that you're in and you're willing to trade, and if you're trading this kind of events, then obviously keep an eye on this one. We're going to have consumer confidence figures from Japan. So as you can see already, we're going to have quite a few consumer confidence figures. As we said, Japan, we had from the US earlier on, and Germany as well. And we're going to have the overall sentiment figure for the Eurozone as well. Now then towards midday, we're going to be having inflation data, which we mentioned during the intro. So we're going to have inflation data from Germany, and then it's going to be closely followed by GDP data from the US, which is then followed by a speech from the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell. And at the same time, we're going to have two other speeches. So one from the Bank of England Governor Bailey, and then at the same time, one from the ECB's president, again, Christine Lagarde. And then we're going to have the actual oil inventories figures, which is going to be early afternoon hours at 3:30 UK time. Obviously, you want to be looking at these figures right here because it will show you what the estimate is and what the previous figures were, which we can then compare to the actual figures when the reports are released. Then on Thursday, we're going to be having manufacturing data from China in the early morning hours. And then in the regular morning hours of the UK/EU session, we'll have GDP data from the UK and retail sales figure from Germany and then Switzerland. And then moving further, again, still in the morning hours of the EU session, we're going to have unemployment data from Germany, which is again something we mentioned during the intro. And then we're going to get the overall employment figure rate from the Eurozone. Here we're going to be having the PCE price index from the US towards midday, which is again the measured, the preferred, let's say, figure with regards to the inflation reading from the Fed. And then we're going to be having personal spending and income figures again released towards midday. And around about the same time, we're going to have GDP data from Canada and the speech from ECB's president, again, Christine Lagarde. And then moving on to Friday, we're going to have unemployment figures from Japan in the early morning UK hours. We're going to have again manufacturing data coming out of China, still in the early morning hours. And then if we scroll further, we're going to have, again, staying with manufacturing figures. One is going to be from the EU, and the other one is going to be from the UK, which is going to be, again, in the regular/morning hours of the UK-EU session. And then it's going to be closely followed by the inflation figures from the Eurozone. And then to finish the week off, we're going to have manufacturing data from the US. As you can see, it's going to be somewhat of an action-packed week with quite a few speeches from key members of the central banks. We're going to have consumer confidence indices and figures as well from several economies like the US, Germany as well. So yeah, definitely a couple of events to keep your eyes on. Whether you're trading events or not, I think it's good just to always keep them in mind, because even if you're like intraday trading or trading more short term, let's say, these kind of events is the ones that can really impact your trade. So definitely keep an eye on them again, whether you trade them or not. We already did mention with regards to the oil inventory report, because obviously our next topic is going to be commodities. So again, like we said, it's going to be released on Wednesday, and you can always keep an eye on those figures so you can gauge it and compare with the actual when the event is going to be released. Now, aside from the inventory reports, another kind of report that we had, it was actually last week, is that Warren Buffett spent over $500 million acquiring another 9.6 million shares of Occidental Petroleum. Now that pretty much brings the Berkshire Hathaway's total stake in the company to 152 million shares, which is worth approximately $8.5 billion as quoted by Yahoo Finance. Now this represents close to 16% stake of the company, and while this specific company, Occidental Petroleum, is not tradable currently on tixee, this is not the point that I'm trying to make here, but what I'm trying to ask ourselves is, if Warren Buffett is so heavily investing into energy companies, while prices are trading at the highs, so if we switch back here, and I'll put the crude oil just to have it in front of us. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So we can see right here that we're pretty much trading on the highs of the year. So this is pretty much the start of the year. We've been rising ever since, and we're trading again towards the highs up here. So if he's heavily investing into energy companies that are directly linked now to oil as well, while it's trading at these highs, then what could this signify? Are we potentially, is he expecting to see a further rise in oil prices? I mean, obviously time is going to tell, but it's quite an interesting report, seeing as how he's considered one of the kings of value investing, and seeing as how our oil prices are currently, and with the stock obviously being directly linked to oil price as well. It's going to be interesting to see both the movements of that stock specifically, and also of oil prices, if it's going to be tied closely to that. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. You can obviously read about it more over the internet. If you just search up for Warren Buffett and Occidental Petroleum, you're going to be able to see those relevant reports. And lastly, we're going to be moving on to cryptocurrencies, and we're going to look at Bitcoin and the dollar. Now, it was unfortunately, yet another bloodbath with regards to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin specifically. We've obviously been mentioning this over the course of the last couple of weeks and videos, which you can obviously always find on YouTube if you want to see like a retrospect of what we've been discussing with regards to cryptos and Bitcoin more specifically. We're pretty much eyeing this level, this zone, I would say initially. We saw prices consolidating around this key level, which is marked by the yellow line here. And pretty much as soon as we saw the breakdown, we estimated that the next potential key structure level was going to be around the 20K mark. So we can see, if I just highlight this little level here, I'll just remove this for the time being. So prices came and traded briefly even below the 20K mark. So we came all the way down. If I see the low, it's 17,592. We have, of course, bounced back up slightly and closed above the level, and we're now trading even a little bit higher than that. But the point is, we obviously came right into the zone that we're looking at. Now, it depends, again, it's going to be more or less a similar scenario as to what prices did around this zone here. So we're bouncing off of the key structure here, so we could either see it consolidate, and depending on what the breakouts are, we could see it moving back up to these levels. If they decide to break down, then the next key area, in my opinion, is going to be around this level, which is going to be the 12,500, let's say. So we have obviously some areas that we can work off of. So again, this will depend what the price is going to do there. Here, it pretty much consolidated. It dropped. Some traders were trying to go long on the breakouts here, and eventually it dropped even further. So we could see similar scenarios. If not, we could see them trapping sellers this time on the downside before it just moves back up towards the upside. Now, so again, we have these levels to work off of, but definitely it's an interesting time for cryptocurrencies in general. But we can see pretty much the staggering drop we've had since, let's say, the beginning of 2022, which was round about here. So prices are down by more than like 60% on the year, which is a pretty staggering drop. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on cryptocurrencies if that's the market that you're looking to trade. And yeah, there you have it as far as the outlook for next week's markets. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, trade safe.